Welcome back to Midco Magazine. Well, sports and games can be a great connection and a bond between generations, and that is the case in our next story, where the game of golf has kept the father and son connected through trials and tragedy. What is your connection to someone you love? An activity or an action that bonds you and a parent or a spouse or a friend? For Glenn Anderson and his dad, it was the game of golf.
Once in a while we'd take my mom, but most of the time it was just he and I. And it was a lot of silence. We just walked, had a good time with each other. Sometimes just spending time with someone, even if there's few words, just the quality time. And that's what we had.
His father was his hero, and when his dad died of cancer in the early 90s, Glenn suffered the first big loss of his life.
It changed golf dramatically for me. The first thing I did was gather up his golf clubs and put them in the trunk of my car. And they stayed there for years because I didn't golf for years.
He did start up again, but there was always something missing, and sometimes too much of something else.
Everyone else I would try and golf with after a few years, it was too much talking, too much. It just wasn't the same course.
In the years since, Glenn got on with his life. He worked and got married. She already had 4 kids, and together they have 2 more, including a son. And then Glenn suffered a second huge loss. He was working at an ag processing plant and was trying to clear a clog in a machine when he got his hand caught between 2 serrated rollers.
My hand went in, and these are rolling downwards. And it didn't hurt. It was the weirdest thing. It didn't hurt. I remember looking at my hand quickly as it got pulled out of the machine and realized that it was flapping in the air. That was the only sight I had seen in my hand until the cast came off and I had this. But in my mind, I still had a hand.
He went through months of denial and depression, but he had the strong support of his wife to help him find a way out of the funk.
I'm a brute, and I push him, and we get into screaming matches. And every time he even thinks that he wants to give up, I just stomp harder. Because no matter what, I'm not going to let him give up.
Glenn came to realize that he had to adjust. He would have to learn how to redo things. And one day, somehow, he might be able to teach his kids one of his father's favorite games.
Golf was the one sport specifically I wanted to pass on to my children, whether it was the 14-year-old down to the 2-year-old. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that.
Everybody's got to have something. I have the kids, I have my stupid little hobbies. It seemed like everything that he had was ripped away from him, and I had to find some way so that he could have something of his old life back.
Several months after the accident, Glenn was in for what he thought was a routine appointment with Dr. Tim Lee Burton.
And I walked in the office, and Doc is over there screwing in things and working on this little device, and I just sat down thinking it's still a normal appointment. He was doing that for something else. And he came over and he said, "You want to go golfing today?" What? Well, it turns out my wife had snuck my golf clubs in the back of the car. They had bought this golfing prosthesis, expensive golfing prosthesis, may I say, and we fitted it that day, and we went golfing.
Clara and Dr. Lee Burton had been looking a long time for a device like this, and Clara says that she was originally going to buy Glenn a grill for Father's Day and their anniversary, but decided that this was a better gift.
And the only thing I could even remotely possibly think of, you know, when Tim found the company and Tim told me the price, and I just, it was the only thing I could think of, that it was like, I know that this would work. That was the one thing, no matter what the price was, he was gonna get it. I didn't really care what it was gonna cost.
Glenn still carries his dad's old 2-iron in his golf bag, and he says that when he started to play again, the swing and the memories all started to come back to him.
It took like 3 or 4 until I really got the hang of it, and I hit a nice shot. And I looked up and said, "That one's for you, Dad. That one's for you." And it just seems like ever since, every shot. It's hard to explain. Hard to explain. I mean, you never lose a parent, even though they passed on. But somehow, some of those experiences from childhood, when you're doing them, they're there. They're there, and golfing is that for me.
Glenn says he doesn't have a handicap or a disability. He just had an accident and suffered a setback. And as Clara says, she and her husband had had their lives ripped apart for a long time, and it takes a long time to put it all back together.
The dynamics in the family, we're all still just trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure out who we are anymore. He's just as changed as I am. All we can do is just keep on working forward.
Well, before we go, an update on a story we ran on a previous episode of Midco magazine about Ed Thomas, an ultra marathon runner. He has run 4 100-mile runs in just the last 12 months alone. When we met him, he had just finished 360th in the Leadville 100 in Colorado. This time around, though, he chopped that down to 80th place.
I think I trained better, had good support as well, and came in under 25 this year, cut off almost about 4 hours off my time from last year and came in at 24:41. I really love the ultra community, and I really, really love running the longer distances. I mean, marathons are great, but running longer than that, and 100-milers have become my favorite race by far. And I think it's really the camaraderie between everybody.
Well, Ed's goal, he says, is to keep on working on his time and maybe run a 150 or even a 200-mile race in the future. We wish him well. Our thanks to Glenn Anderson, Mackenzie Hagman, and the University of Jamestown women's wrestling team. We'll see you next time on Midco Sports Magazine.